Hello and welcome to a free hit and wildcard draft special for Gameweek 13 and my discussion about whether I think it's worth triple captaining this week and whether it's actually worth triple captaining one Phil Foden instead of Erling Haaland. I'm kidding. This is not that kind of video. At least it isn't yet anyway. But we're not going to waste any time. I haven't managed to get my transfer tips ready, so they'll be out tomorrow instead, and team selection will be on Friday before the late mail. And with that being said, let's dive straight into it, folks. Again, make sure you smash a like, leave us a sub if you haven't already subbed, and leave us a comment with whether you are free hitting this week and whether you like the drafts I've put together for you. And that being said, folks, let's go. Now, normally I would bore you a little bit with my FDR thing that I put together every week, but I just don't think that's necessary. I'll cover it enough as it is this week in general. Now, the thing with free hit, and we'll talk of free hit and wildcard, you normally want to do them when your team needs some help. And look, I've talked a lot about the last couple of weeks about picking players that are in form rather than picking players with good fixtures. And I think that is something we need to start looking at in a little bit more detail. And I look at this team, right? Now, this is my team. This is, as things stand, this is my actual team. I've already made the transfer. Phil Foden is already in for Semenyo. And that's how, at the moment, the team is lining up for Game Week 13. Now, I look at this and I go, all right, well, Pope is probably got half a chance of keeping a clean sheet, even though they conceded twice against Marseille last night in the Champions League. Van den Berg's got a half-decent chance of keeping a clean sheet against Burnley. Chelsea looked amazing in the Champions League, so you never know, and it's at home, so maybe they might actually be all right there. When I look at the midfield, this is where I go, outside of Bruno and Mbumo, right? They obviously blanked against Everton. Prior to that, though, they'd been pretty consistent at ticking over and getting some sort of returns. So maybe it's just worth playing them. And Munoz is obviously capable of getting attacking returns anyway. Man United won't keep a clean sheet. You can put money on that. So then Sarr and Mateta obviously look like half-decent picks as well. So maybe it's actually not that bad of a week, which is why I'm not free hitting myself, because I'm happy to roll the dice with my own team. I understand why other people are doing it, but it can massively backfire. So obviously I bought in Phil Foden because I think a lot of people will bring in a City attacker. It's highly likely to be Doku, Foden, or maybe even Cherky. I'm just hoping that Phil Foden's time has come. He obviously got rested. In fact, almost the entire City team got rested in the Champions League overnight. Obviously Haaland is the captain here. Thiago, Mateta. I mean, it looks like a pretty good team on paper. I'm obviously benching Rice, which is a little bit unlucky, but I just think that he's got the hardest fixture out of the lot of them. And then you could make a case in point if I don't make the other transfer. Obviously, Charles was on the field because originally I was going to move him for a City defender, and that's still definitely something that's in the offering. Or that would require a hit. But in order to get Senesi out for a City defender instead and keep Chalobah, that would require a -8. And I'm trying to work out whether it's actually worth it, and whether in that case it'd be Mateta that leaves or Sarr that leaves, so that future on down the line, I can actually get that extra Palace defender, which I think is where I want to go at some point when we get to Game Week 16. So, yeah, all these things are variables, but this will form the basis of what I think, because I originally created this team like a few weeks ago in order to get to this position with a team that looked pretty good for the next few weeks. So that's going to directly impact on how I view a wildcard draft for Game Week 13. Look, if you haven't got free hit, you haven't got wildcard, and you've got your triple captain left, this is one of the better weeks to play it, and you'd probably play it on Haaland, unless you're me, who might actively consider playing on Phil Foden. I've had no premonitions coming to me, which basically means that it's going to be a Haaland show, so I don't think it makes any sense to bet against him. And the Phil Foden hat-trick now that I've said that, and Haaland blank. Just cue it up, folks. Cue it up. The D-Unit's captaining Haaland. He captained Haaland the first side of the Champions League last night. What happened? He got 1 point. Maybe I'm just cursed. Maybe whatever player I pick just turns to dust this season. It could well be the case. So onto a wildcard draft for Game Week 13, and this squad came in at 101.6 million team value, and in the bank is 0.3. Now, there's going to be a few picks in here that people will be like, where are the Man United midfielders and attack? Well, if Šeško is out for any period of time and Cunha is out for any period of time, they aren't scoring any goals, and also I'm still pissed off with the fact that they performed that poorly against Everton. So they've been turfed out. And I've literally gone for players that are in form, that I think will continue to be in form up until game week 16. We've got some transfers and you'll have to start using one a week because you're going to be topped up to 5. And I think that's when you can get the Man United players back in. So if you're on Wildcard this week, I actually don't think I'll go with any of them. I don't think they're going to get anything against Palace. The week after against West Ham midweek, they might. In fact, they probably will. And then I've obviously got Wolves. So, I get it. But, I've just been poor and it pissed me off. So that's what happens. You get turfed out of the team. So, look, we've got Kelleher and Sanchez in goal. Now, the reason why is because I think Sanchez is actually a really good long-term way of just getting into that Chelsea defence. And they've kept three clean sheets on the bounce. So I think he's going to continue to get quite a few clean sheets. And he's also capable of getting more than 6 points, which is why I kind of like him there. Kelleher is obviously a really good rotating goalkeeper at 4.5, particularly over the next 10 weeks. I quite like him as a pick, and you can play him in a lot of these weeks. Ironically, the weeks where Sanchez isn't overly good, Kelleher's fixture is actually half decent, so just check that rotation out. So I don't mind that, and obviously Kelleher would start in goal here. We've got O'Reilly, Cash, Munoz, Lacroix, and Julian Timber. So I actually think double Palace defence might actually be the way forward because they are going to consistently get points. And Lacroix is really good for DC points. So is Munoz in terms of attacking returns. So combine them together, it doesn't really matter who they play. They're probably going to hit your returns every single week. And yeah, and Matty Cash, obviously a really cheap kind of defender, 4.6. I mean, you could drop him down further if you really wanted, but he's got really good fixtures over some of the next coming weeks, so it makes sense to kind of go there for a Villa player. Then obviously I've got Timber because I think you do need an avenue into that Arsenal defence, and the price he's at, if you're buying new, you'll literally be able to swap him straight over to Gabriel when Gabriel becomes fit and available again, which is going to be happy days for everyone. Then obviously I've gone Saka. Now I've gone Saka for a couple of reasons. Originally I had this as a Rice pick because I think Rice is actually better value for money in that. But I also kind of wanted a placeholder for Cole Palmer when he comes back. And it is rumoured that he's actually going to be coming back from the toe, probably post the end of this weekend. So that way you're going to have the extra funds of 0.3 in the bank with Saka there in order to go to Palmer, which is why the only reason why Saka's in here. Plus, Saka in game week 16, you want to captain him. He's the best captain, I think, for game week 16. So I think for that reason, it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I've gone with form players in the midfield. So Kevin Chard's been consistently getting returns for Brentford, and they consistently are getting the thing. And I thought back to last season when obviously I had the Wisser and Mbeumo double up myself and how many points I raked off those combinations. And this year, I think there are two distinct possibilities in terms of connections you can get moving forward. And that's Kevin Chard or Dango paired with Thiago, and Minte paired with Welbeck. I think Brighton and Brentford, both not being in Europe, both having that really good combo that are playing literally every single game, getting good minutes, getting consistent attacking returns. They're like the Wisser and Mbeumo partnership from last year, but there's two of them. And I actively want to get involved with that myself and just double up on these teams when they've got good fixtures. I mean, Brighton and Brentford both had pretty good fixtures around this period of time. I actively want to go there, and I think potentially overlooking Mateta and Sarr might actually be the clever decision, and I kind of wish that I'd kind of done that myself, and I think this is my thoughts on it and why I'm auto-correcting it. Then obviously I've gone with Harvey Barnes. Now, Harvey Barnes, you could sit there and say, why have you gone with him? If you look historically at how Harvey Barnes goes, he's a man that gets goals in huge clumps and then he goes missing. So at the moment, he's got 4 goals in the last 3 games. He is on a heater, absolute heater. And I kind of expect him to continue the heater, which is why I bought him in. Newcastle's fixtures now, since they've got the Man City game out of the way, and obviously he scored twice in that game anyway, are pretty good. And I think I don't think that he's going to be displacing Gordon. We saw this happen last season. Barnes was on a heater. Gordon became back fit and available. He didn't get back in the team. So I actually think that that's probably what's going to happen here. So I quite like Harvey Barnes there. Then obviously I've gone with Phil Foden. Now this is probably going to cause a little bit of controversy because obviously he's barely done anything. He's got 1 goal, 1 assist, 1 lot of DC this season. And the only thing that he's really been racking up consistently are yellow cards and clean sheets. But this was the exact same thing last year. And then the fixtures looked amazing for City. and I just took a punt on him, and he came in with the best 5-week spell of anyone in the game last season outside of Salah. So I do not mind Phil Foden here, and I think it's a gamble that, well, I've already taken it in my own team. So when I was putting together the wildcard team, it looks pretty good. And look, you can play bench boost on any single week. The team is quality. You're going to be set across whether the Christmas time, when there's rotation, when there's injuries. You wouldn't mind playing any of these players any single week. Yes, you're going to get a benching headache most single weeks, but hey, that's what life's about, right? You're better off having a benching headache than sitting there relying on someone that that you don't want to play, having to fill in for your team. So for a wildcard draft, I think that's where I would go. FYI, I wouldn't be captaining Phil Foden this week. I was just a little bit lazy, and I just thought see if anyone would notice that. But yeah. All right, so let's get on to the first free hit special that I've come up with. So this one, there's only 0.1 million in the bank, and it comes in at 101.8 million. Now, this draft is what I'd imagine. I actually don't know what I imagine. I've watched no other content this week except FPL Nightmare's reaction video to Bruno Fernandes, because it made me feel a little bit better about myself having the same captaincy blank. But I just think when I first put together, I was like, this is where I would go. Ollie Watkins, Morgan Rogers, Martinez. Brilliant Villa triple up. Looks good. They're playing Wolves at home. Fantastic. Yes, Ollie Watkins is not in form, but Wolves have been bang awful. Rog obviously off the back of 2 goals. Makes a lot of sense. Martinez, really good chance for a clean sheet. Then I looked at Brentford and I thought, you've got to have a triple up there. Burnley at home. So let's bring in Thiago. Let's bring in Kevin Schad. And let's go with Van den Berg, who's got really good underlying numbers in terms of attacking output. Gets a lot of DC. Hopefully he can get the clean sheet. And the way that Burnley defend, he's every chance of getting ahead of goal. So that's why I quite like him as a pick there. Then I was like, well, Man City got Leeds. So you really need triple Man City as well. So Erling Haaland, obvious choice, obvious captain. Phil Foden, you take a pick. You could have Doku. You could have an extra City defender if you wanted. But I've gone with Foden just because I like him. And I don't really fancy a punt on Doku or Cherky. I don't think they're going to get as many good minutes as Phil Foden will on the weekend. And then I've got Nico O'Reilly. Aït-Nouri did nothing to suggest that he should be in the team, ironically, which was quite funny. So I think that O'Reilly will probably definitely start at left back based on what happened in the Champions League. And then the 2 other picks are Mo Salah, based on the fact it's Mo Salah, and I had the money, so why the hell not? And he's playing West Ham, who in theory should be an easy fixture, but he's not in form, and neither of Liverpool. They are not in form. 6 losses in the last 7 games. And then I've gone with everyone's favourite player. And it's not Tottenham at home, it's Tottenham away. That's an error in itself right there. I've gone with Joachim Andersen. Why? Just for the bants and the abuse I'm going to get in the comments, really more than anything else. But when you weigh up 2 factors, right? They're playing Spurs, and they're playing Spurs at home. And Spurs at home are a different level of beast. They're crap. They're crap generally. We saw that on the weekend. We're probably going to see it tonight in the Champions League. They're even more crap and awful when they're playing at home. So I actually think Anderson could be half a chance of scoring a goal against Spurs. I think this is probably his best chance to score a goal off a set piece this entire season, is this game right here, right now, against Spurs away. So for that reason, any Anderson owner, I'd just play him. I would actually play him this week. I don't mind him as a pick this week. Then on the bench, obviously, we've just skimped out as cheap as you can get here. Dubravka in goal. We've got Mukiele in the defence. I mean, you can play Mukiele over Anderson if you're so way inclined. I think Bournemouth will struggle away against Sunderland as well. Alderete as well, because I needed a 4.1 million defender or 4.2, and that was the next closest one I could find that I liked. And then King, because he's playing Spurs, and I mean, you're not going to play him anyway. He's going to sit there last on the bench. And yeah, Haaland the captain, Mo Salah the captain. Now, is this a draft that I would go with? The answer is no. Why? Because I believe that on any kind of chip like a free hit, you should take punts. Take punts that no one else is going to do, because it's a one-off week to go absolutely nuclear or absolutely tank your rank. And based on how my season's been going, I think that if I picked this kind of a draft here, it would tank, because on paper, it looks really good, but I'm ignoring the fact that I'm picking players that aren't necessarily particularly in form, or their teams aren't in form, and I'm just playing the fixture. So for that reason, I would go for a draft more like this. So this is the second one, and this is based on not only the fixture, but the fact that the players are actually in form and that I believe that they will return. So again, I've gone with Martinez, but this time instead of Ollie Watkins, we've gone with Matty Cash, who is significantly in form and going with the double Villa defence. Now, you could argue that you could play double Palace defence, but as I said, in my own team, I've got double United, so I kind of think that United will score, and Palace obviously do play in Europe, and it's later in the week, and Man United will be fresh, and they'll probably be fired up after Monday night where they just didn't bother to show up, and I dare say there will be a response. So for that reason, I've actually gone with Munoz, because I think that he will get an attacking return against United, because he's playing down our weakest side by a country mile. If he somehow gets lucky and Diego Dalot starts at left wing back, Munoz is going to have an absolute field day out there, and it would make no sense not to start him. And I don't think many other free hit drafts are going to actually include him there. Matty Cash is just going to be good. I think O'Reilly's just a bit of a no-brainer. He's actually in really good form, and he's got an easy fixture, so that makes sense. Then in the midfield, we're going for Rodgers, who's just come off a brace, and I think that he's actually found some form. Really good for minutes as well, and he'll be sweet. Then we're actually, instead of going with Thiago, we'll get to the forward line in a second. I know everyone's sitting there going, what the hell's going on here? So we've gone with Dango, Otara, and Kevin Shard. Now, both of them are actually in really good form for Brentford. They've both been getting consistent attacking returns. And I just think that Burnley's defence are going to be run ragged by this lot on the weekend. I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, make a real bit of sense to actually go a triple Brentford attack, like Dango, Shard, and Thiago, and just absolutely bank on them scoring goals, because I think they will. The G-Tech, they're very good. They were last season. They've been the same way this year. They pushed Man City to only a 1-0 win. They obviously smoked Man United. They smoked Liverpool at home. Goals aren't going to be a problem. So I think that it makes sense to back in players that are actually in form, and a team that is actually in form at home. Then I've got my Harvey Barnes. As I talked about, that hot streak on the wildcard draft, you are riding the hot streak. Harvey Barnes is a player that scores a lot of goals in big clumps, and I just think that he's going to bang. I mean, Everton's defence, yes, they defended well against Man United. I don't think they're going to set up shop like that at home, and I think Newcastle will exploit that, and I think Harvey Barnes is the perfect player to do it. I mean, the weakest side of Everton's defence is on the right. Like Seamus Coleman started there, came off. It's not someone I want to be playing there. So Harvey Barnes is going to be playing down the left. It kind of, again, makes sense based on where they're attacking and the player that will be there, that he's probably one of the more likely players to haul this week. Then if we look at the front line, I've gone with Erling Haaland, obviously a bit of a no-brainer. He's playing Leeds, and you would expect them to rack up the goals there on Saturday afternoon. And then I've gone with Callum Wilson. Now, this is where I might lose a few people. But West Ham have been scoring goals. They've scored 3 goals in their last 2 home fixtures. They scored 2 away on the weekend. And Callum Wilson has now scored 4 goals from 4 starts. And he scored 3 goals in his last 2 games. And he's playing a Liverpool team that we don't know how they're going to go to the Champions League yet, because obviously they play tonight against PSV. But I actually think Callum Wilson could actually bang. Like, I actually legitimately believe that he will score against that horrible Liverpool defence on the weekend. I actually think West Ham are going to win. I don't know why. I don't know what's telling me this. But based on the form of Liverpool and the fact that Callum Wilson is in form, yes, I did consider Jared Bowen here in a double-up West Ham attack. That would have made a lot of sense, but it makes more sense to go that 5-man midfield. So Callum Wilson's in there. Now, you can make a case in point. I could have gone Thiago and just put Van den Berg to a different defender. I fully appreciate that. And you can do that because there's 5.3 million in the bank. If you wanted to do that, you could just ditch Van den Berg, play Thiago, and go a triple Brentford attack, which I really like. But I love punting on free hit myself. And I punted last year and I got a couple of decent hauls. I didn't quite get as many as I'd hoped. But this is what it's all about. Welbeck, obviously, he's a really good player to sit on the bench in case anyone doesn't show up. Again, he's in really good form. Van den Berg, I talked about him earlier in my own team. I think he's going to be great. And then Lacroix, I mean, stacked bench. I can't believe the draft only came in at 96.5 mil. Like, you don't have to spend your money if you're on free hit. Like, a lot of people will be like, oh, I can afford to get Haaland and Salah. You don't have to get Haaland and Salah. there's every chance Salah does nothing. In fact, I'd say there's probably a 75% chance of that happening. And there's probably a 75% chance of Barnes outscoring Salah this week, I would suggest, based on the fixture, based on the form, based on the player, and based on the team and how they're going. Obviously, Dean Henderson's in goal there as well. I mean, I was just trying to spend the money on the extra goalkeeper. I didn't really. That's what I came up with. So yeah, let me know what you think. 2 free hit drafts, 1 wildcard draft. I prefer the second one. And FYI, if I was on free hit this week, I would be betting against Haaland as captain. Why? Because every man and his dog is going to have, if they've got triple captain, there's going to be a lot of triple captains this week on Erling Haaland against Leeds. And I think that if I was not on free hit, if I was on free hit, I'd take a punt on Phil Foden and I'd captain him. There you go. I've said it. I'll do it for the 3rd time in a row. I mean, 3rd time, as they say, is the charm, ladies and gentlemen. And I think having a few weeks off from Phil Foden and seeing pretty much my last 4 weeks or so, pretty much matching Haaland in terms of points, I don't mind the punt. I really don't mind the punt. So, yeah, if you're on free hit, let me know what you're thinking. What kind of a draft are you putting together? Leave it in the comments. I'm very intrigued to know. So that brings us to the end of the free hit and wildcard special for Game Week 13. Hopefully you've enjoyed that content. Hopefully you've enjoyed a bit of different thinking about it and why I pick certain players that maybe you might not see on other people's free hit drafts, because I've looked at where those players, the teams they're playing are weakest, and I picked the players there. You don't always have to have a green fixture for it to be a good fixture, which is why I picked Harvey Barnes, Munoz, and Callum Wilson in that second one, because it makes a lot of sense. They're playing teams that are exceptionally weak defensively in those areas where they specialise in. So it makes a lot of sense. Again, if you've enjoyed that, smash a like on the video, leave us a comment, and if you haven't already, smash that sub button. Help us get to 5,000, baby. We're on the way, and I'll be back tomorrow, I promise, with my actual transfer tips. Thanks for watching. I've been the D-Unit. I'll catch you tomorrow. Enjoy your night.